Sagittarius, God is removing you from the wrong place. Trust the divine exit. You, more than anyone, know what it feels like to crave freedom, to chase horizons, to expand beyond limits, to follow the sacred pull of truth. But lately, haven't you felt like something invisible is holding you back? Like a silent weight pressing down on your wings? There's a place in your life right now, perhaps a relationship, a job, a role you've outgrown that has begun to feel like a cage. You didn't choose it. Not consciously. But you stayed thinking maybe you could outgrow the discomfort. Yet the discomfort has only grown louder. And now the universe is whispering, it's time. Time to leave what no longer honors your fire. Time to listen to what your restlessness has been trying to tell you. Time to stop shrinking to stay safe. This is not a random message. This is a divine intervention. A holy wake-up call tailored just for you, Sagittarius. Not to scare you, but to set you free. In the next few moments, we'll walk through a spiritual roadmap together. A truth-telling journey, one that may feel raw, but will leave you standing in your power once more. If your soul feels this message, honor it. Like, share, subscribe to Zodiac Wisdom, where I, Sophia, walk with you through the sacred fires of transformation. Your journey begins now. Gate 1, the divine exit. When the universe interrupts your journey to protect you. Sagittarius, you've always seen life as a great adventure. Your spirit is a compass that points to possibility. You believe in motion, in exploring new lands externally or internally. But what happens when your road suddenly ends? What do you do when the universe, without warning, places a road closed sign right in the middle of your journey? For months, maybe even years, you've tried to make something work. A job that no longer inspires you. A relationship that's been quietly draining you. A place or role that once fit your spirit, but now feels too tight, like a shoe you've outgrown. Still, you've stayed. Because you thought maybe the discomfort would pass. Because you didn't want to give up. Because you're loyal to your vision. Because sometimes even freedom seekers like you get caught in a web of almosts and maybes. But here's the truth, Sagittarius. God never lets the wild ones waste their fire for long. And you are one of the wild ones. Divine intervention doesn't always come as lightning. Sometimes it arrives quietly. Through mounting frustration, through the slow dimming of your enthusiasm, through that inexplicable sense that you're no longer in the right place. Even if nothing seems obviously wrong, you may have noticed it already. Tasks that once felt exciting now feel heavy. Conversations that used to energize you now leave you feeling flat. You wake up dreading the routine, silencing your inner voice just to make it through another day. And here's the part most people don't talk about. Sometimes the toxic place isn't obviously toxic. It can be cloaked in comfort, in routine, but I should be grateful. But your soul knows. You feel it every time your fire flickers instead of roars. Let me tell you a story. A Sagittarius woman named Eliza once worked in a high-paying corporate role. On paper, she had it all: the salary, the status, the office with a view. But every day, she felt her spirit shrinking. The freedom she craved was missing. Her ideas were always too bold. Her voice, often interrupted. And though she tried to push through, her body began to speak what her soul wouldn't say. Sleepless nights, fatigue, tears in the car. Until one day, she was laid off without warning. First, she panicked. But within weeks, doors opened she didn't even know existed. Consulting offers, creative projects, invitations that matched her soul's rhythm. She later said, "Getting fired was the greatest gift I never would have chosen." Sagittarius, maybe your exit won't look like Eliza's. Maybe it won't come with a clear break. Maybe it will feel like a slow unraveling. But make no mistake, the universe is preparing your departure from the place you've outgrown. Not to punish you, but to preserve you. To redirect you to a field where your gifts can truly grow. And when that time comes, the worst thing you can do is resist. I know what you're thinking. But what if I'm just being impatient? What if this is a test? You are a seeker, Sagittarius, and seekers often confuse endurance with growth. But not every hard thing is meant to be endured. Some hard things are meant to signal that you've stayed too long. You are not here to prove how much suffering you can tolerate. You're here to blaze trails, and sometimes that means walking away from places that no longer see your light. Maybe you've already begun to feel the signs. Technology breaking down. Miscommunications multiplying. People shifting strangely. Energy that used to feel stable now crackles with tension. These are not accidents. These are divine breadcrumbs, scattered gently to guide you toward your exit path. It takes courage to leave the familiar. It takes trust to step into the unknown. But the deeper truth is this: you are not being asked to abandon anything. You are being called to return to yourself. I want you to sit with this question tonight. Where in your life are you dimming your light just to keep the peace? Where are you over-explaining your value just to be accepted? Where are you staying silent when your soul is screaming to speak? The universe is loving, but it is not sentimental. It will not allow you to remain where you are slowly dying inside. And that means disruption. That means endings. That means divine discomfort. But all of it is part of a larger movement. The reclamation of your joy, your freedom, your truth. Your Sagittarius fire is not meant to flicker behind closed doors. It is meant to be seen from miles away, to light paths for others, to lead boldly with integrity, to laugh loudly without apology. But first, you must exit the space that can no longer hold your flame. You may not know what's next. That's okay. Sagittarius never needed a map, just a reason. And this is it. The universe is preparing the terrain. Your job is to trust the message, pack your bags, and prepare for the next leg of your journey. This isn't abandonment. It's alignment. You are not walking away. You are walking home. Gate 2. The goodbye that saved you. Letting go is the most sacred form of trust. Sagittarius, I want you to pause for a moment and breathe. Because what we're about to explore together is tender. It's the ache that follows when something or someone is no longer meant to stay. It's the hollow silence after the last word has been said. And it's the moment your soul realizes: this ending was never punishment, it was protection. You've always been good at forward motion. You charge into life with faith as your compass. But sometimes your momentum is halted not by lack of vision but by heartbreak. And in those moments, even the archer lowers their bow. There may have been a recent goodbye in your life. A friendship that faded. A romance that fractured. A dream you had to lay to rest. And even if you initiated the ending, the grief still lingers. As Sagittarius, you love hard. When you believe in someone, you believe with your whole being. You see the potential. You want to grow with them. You want to explore the world together. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. So when someone walks away, or when you realize you must, it leaves a wound that no map can prepare you for. I want to share a story with you. A Sagittarius man named Tomas once came to me, heartbroken over a partner he thought was the one. They had dreamed of moving abroad, starting a new life, traveling the world. But little by little, their connection dimmed. She stopped dreaming. He kept planning. The rift grew silently. Eventually, she left. Not with anger, but with a quiet finality that left him shattered. At first, he tried to convince her to stay. He reasoned, pleaded, compromised. But nothing worked. He couldn't understand why the universe would allow such love to unravel. Months later, while backpacking solo through Peru, a trip he was meant to take with her, he met a small group of healers in the sacred valley. It was there he had his first deep experience of inner peace. Not distraction, not escape, real alignment. And in that stillness, he finally understood. That goodbye wasn't abandonment. It was a doorway into himself. Into a life he would never have accessed if he had clung to the past. Sagittarius, the universe knows how deeply you attach to shared dreams. But not every dream is meant to be fulfilled in the way you imagined. Sometimes the dream must die so the dreamer can rise. Sometimes the soul contract ends because your growth can no longer fit inside that dynamic. And while the human in you grieves, the soul in you whispers, "Thank you for letting me go." Have you ever noticed that some of the greatest transformations in your life were preceded by heartache? The breakups, the breakdowns, the burnouts? They weren't detours, they were thresholds. And yet we resist. We hold on longer than we should. We rewrite the story in our heads. We ask, what could I have done differently? But here's what I want you to know, Sagittarius. You were not abandoned. You were chosen for redirection. That relationship, that dream, that identity, it served its sacred purpose. It brought you to this very edge. But it cannot take you across the next bridge. Your heart, wild and wise, is capable of infinite expansion. But not everything is meant to come with you. And this is not a failure of love. This is love evolving. This is divine pruning. Sometimes endings are messy. They arrive like a storm, shattering the plans you held so tightly. Other times they come gently, like autumn leaves letting go of their branches. Whether abrupt or slow, each loss holds a message. You are not losing yourself. You are shedding what you are no longer meant to carry. There's a phrase I often whisper to those in grief. Let it leave with love. Let the memory be holy, not heavy. Let the goodbye be a blessing, not a burden. Let your tears be baptisms, not breakdowns. You are not collapsing. You are being carved open for light. Sagittarius, you may be tempted to rush the healing, to throw yourself into distractions, plans, forward movement. That's your instinct to keep going. But I invite you just for a while to stay in the quiet, to honor what ended, to light a candle for what will never return. Not to dwell, but to respect the sacredness of release. This chapter is not the full story. You are not stuck. You are healing. And healing, my dear Sagittarius, is not linear. Some days you'll feel weightless. Others, you'll ache at the scent of something familiar. All of it is part of the divine unraveling. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're being reborn. You once believed that love meant holding on. But now your soul is learning that true love is knowing when to let go. And one day soon you'll wake up and realize the space that felt empty is now filled with peace. The silence that once hurt now sounds like stillness. And you'll thank every goodbye for leading you back to yourself. You were never lost. You were being redirected by grace. Gate 3. Love that finds you when you return to yourself. Sagittarius, there is a kind of love that doesn't knock loudly or make a dramatic entrance. It arrives softly, like the wind brushing against your skin, like a melody you almost forgot you loved. It doesn't demand your attention. It resonates with your truth. You may have believed love was a pursuit, something to be chased. And yes, your fire burns for adventure, for expansion, for stories written in distant lands and shared sunsets. But what if I told you that the most sacred kind of love begins not in the thrill of discovery, but in the sanctuary of stillness? There's a truth your soul is remembering now. You don't have to run toward love. Love will find you when you return to yourself. After the heartbreak, after the letting go, after the wilderness of not knowing, you begin to hear your own voice again. And in that voice, in that quiet rediscovery of who you are without anyone else defining it, something beautiful happens. Your energy shifts. And energy, Sagittarius, is everything. You've always been magnetic. But when you align with your highest truth, when you no longer seek to be chosen but choose yourself, you begin to attract a different kind of connection. One that isn't based on illusion or projection. One that isn't built on fear of loneliness or fantasies of completion. But a connection born of mutual recognition. Soul to soul. Flame to flame. Let me tell you a story. Luna was a Sagittarius who spent years searching for the one. She dated across countries, met people in foreign cities, sought sparks and synchronicities. But every flame eventually dimmed. Until one day, after a long inner winter, she stopped looking. She moved into a small cottage near a mountain trail, started painting again, hiked alone in silence, and fell back in love with life itself. That's when he appeared. Not from a dating app, not from a dramatic twist, but in line at a local bookstore. They reached for the same book on mythology. Their conversation wasn't fireworks, it was ease, depth, resonance. As if they had waited lifetimes just to meet when both were finally whole. Sagittarius, that's the kind of love your soul is ready for. You've had passion. You've had chemistry. You've had the lessons that burn but also teach. Now you're being prepared for something purer. A partnership that doesn't cage your freedom but honors it. A love that celebrates your wildness, not tries to tame it. And here's the paradox. The more deeply you commit to your own joy, your own truth, your own presence, the more visible you become to your soulmate. Because soulmates don't meet by chasing. They find each other when both are vibrating at the same spiritual frequency. Do you feel it? That pull toward someone you haven't even met yet, but already feel in your bones? That sense that a reunion is coming, not from effort but from alignment? You may not know their name. You may not recognize their face. But your energy knows. Your heart is preparing space. And while romantic movies show grand entrances, real soul love often begins with quiet recognition. A look, a conversation, a sense of home. This love won't rescue you, Sagittarius. It will mirror you, challenge you, inspire you, and most of all, it will witness you. You'll no longer have to explain your fire. your freedom, your need for space and purpose. They will see it, and instead of fearing it, they will cherish it. They'll walk beside you, not in front of or behind. They will let you lead when your vision is clear, and offer direction when your path feels foggy. This kind of connection isn't fast. It's timeless, and it doesn't just come from desire, it comes from readiness. So prepare, Sagittarius, not by seeking but by becoming. The more you honor your inner compass, the more you call in the one who is already walking toward you from the other end of the map. Remember, true soulmates are not found. They are recognized. Gate 4. When you feel abandoned by the universe but are actually being initiated. Sagittarius, what happens when the map disappears? When you followed every inner nudge, listened to the signs, surrendered to endings, waited for beginnings, and still nothing makes sense. You sit in the silence. You look for direction but only see fog. You cry out for guidance but hear nothing but your own echo. This is not failure. This is not abandonment. This is initiation. Every soul brave enough to evolve must pass through this moment, the sacred void. It is not a punishment. It is a rite of passage. A test not of strength but of surrender. You see, Sagittarius, your nature is to move, to seek, to expand. But true spiritual awakening often begins not with movement, but with stillness. With being stripped of all certainty so that you may finally receive clarity that doesn't come from logic, but from the divine. Have you felt that disorientation lately? That strange hollowness, like something important is missing but you can't quite name it? You're not alone. You're not doing something wrong. You are standing at the edge of the unseen, right where the ego dissolves and the soul starts to speak. And when the soul speaks, it doesn't shout. It whispers. That's why the world has gone quiet around you. That's why the path seems unclear. Not because you are lost, but because you are being recalibrated. A Sagittarius woman named Amara once told me she felt like the universe had gone completely silent on her. After a breakup, a job layoff, and a sudden relocation, she began to question everything, even her sense of spiritual guidance. She meditated but felt nothing. She prayed but sensed no reply. Until one day, in the middle of a sleepless night, she sat in her kitchen holding a cup of tea and simply said aloud, "If you're still with me, show me in a way I can understand." That very morning, a neighbor she barely knew brought her a book, unprompted, titled Awakening the Inner Flame. The cover? A golden arrow piercing the clouds. That symbol, that message was her sign. Not because it was grand, but because it was timely, precise, and sacred. Sagittarius, the universe hasn't forgotten you. It's just moved into a deeper language. The divine doesn't always use words. Speaks in patterns, in dreams, in gut feelings, in small, quiet synchronicities that seem meaningless, until you look back and realize they were messages all along. You are not outside the plan. You are in the middle of it. But here's the spiritual truth. There is a moment when every seeker must stop seeking externally and sit in the dark cave of not knowing. In that cave, your old definitions burn away. Your ego resists. You question everything. And slowly, your inner fire reignites. Not from outside fuel, but from your own eternal spark. This is your soul's initiation, and it is holy. No vision quest is complete without disorientation. No mythic journey skips the chapter where the hero must walk alone. This is not exile. This is preparation. The deeper you allow yourself to feel lost, the closer you are to finding your most sacred truth. You were never lost to begin with. You were simply being drawn inward. Do not rush this phase. Do not fill the silence with distractions. Let it echo. Let the unknowing soften you. This is where intuition is born. This is where divine trust is forged, not because you see the plan, but because you trust the planner. And Sagittarius, your fire was never meant to burn only in external pursuits. Your true power lies in learning how to carry light within, even when the world goes dark. That's the mark of the awakened archer. Not one who always sees the target, but one who keeps the bow drawn in faith. So stay still, even if it's uncomfortable. Ask your soul, what am I being prepared for? Light a candle and declare, I trust even when I cannot trace. This is not the end of the story. This is the spiritual breath before the revelation. And I promise you, on the other side of this silence, something extraordinary awaits. Your next chapter is not just coming. It's being carved in sacred stone by your surrender in this very moment. You are not alone in the cave. You are being watched over, whispered to, and wrapped in light too vast for your eyes to see. So trust, Sagittarius. Even in the dark, your soul remembers the way. Conclusion: trust the divine redirection, Sagittarius. Sagittarius, if you've made it to this moment, know this: you are already healing. Even if you still feel uncertain, even if the map hasn't reappeared, your soul has heard every word whispered across this message, and something deep within you has begun to shift. You have let go of what drained you. You've stood in the fire of truth. You've sat in the silence of uncertainty. And now you are being gently but powerfully realigned with the life you were always meant to live. Not a life of survival or striving, but a life where your light is not only seen, but celebrated. The journey ahead may still have questions, but your compass has been reset. You're no longer moving from fear or pressure. You're moving from alignment. And if this message stirred something within you, if a sentence, a moment, a truth made you pause, breathe deeper, or cry just a little, that was not an accident. That was your spirit saying, yes, I remember this truth. I created this space not just to share astrology, but to create sanctuary, for reflection, for connection, for the sacred remembering of who you are. If you felt held, seen, or uplifted in any way today, and feel called to support this mission, your heartfelt tip, no matter the size, is a quiet act of love that helps me continue offering these messages to souls around the world. Only if it feels right in your spirit. No pressure, just presence. And more than anything, Sagittarius, keep trusting. Keep aiming your arrow not toward outcomes but toward truth. Keep choosing alignment over approval, intuition over logic, soul over certainty. The universe is not leading you astray. It is preparing you to live in a space where your light will not be questioned, but revered. Now breathe. Exhale. You've already begun. With all my love, Sophia.